Yo, what's up everybody? It's Mr. White here with part 3 of the final exam test review. So go ahead and get out your test review. We're going to pick up with the part that talks about social and economic revolutions. And that means we're on number 33. So here we go, number 33. How did the steam engine affect daily life? Pretty simple. It increased industrial efficiency. That means it was easier for factories to produce things, and that had a pretty big effect on people's lives. You remember, it increased the standard of living, created more jobs, increased urbanization, did a lot of good things for society. Alright, so number 34. In what economic system do the people own factors of production and make their own decisions about them? It's pretty simple. People are free to make their own decisions. We call that free enterprise. Simple. Let's keep it moving. Alright, number 35. What are the characteristics of a socialist economy? Well, socialism means a mixed economy, so there are elements of free enterprise and elements of command economy. So what that means is that in a socialist system, there are collective goals and government decision making mixed together with some private control and use of the factors of production. Okay? Now number 36. What is the textile industry? That's cloth making. Textiles are cloth. Remember that was one of the very first industries to become industrialized during the Industrial Revolution. Alright, number 37. What is urbanization and what caused it during the Industrial Revolution? Well, urbanization means people moving into cities. It's the growth and expansion of cities. And the number one reason why that happened was because people moved from farms to cities looking for work. During the Industrial Revolution, there weren't as many jobs on farms because farming was also becoming more efficient. Fewer people were needed on the farms, so those people needed jobs. And the one place that needed lots of people to work was the city, because that's where all these new factories were popping up. Alright, so number 38. Where do we see Marie Curie's work with radiation today? Well, Marie Curie was the lady who discovered radiation. So radiation is used in lots of things, like if you've ever had an x-ray to see a broken bone, or if you've gone to the airport and seen them x-ray your bag. That was something that Marie Curie's research helped to come up with. Sort of a bad side of Marie Curie's research is it led the way to things like atomic weapons. So that's not good. But something else good, at least in the medical side of things, is it led to treatments for cancer, like chemotherapy. So lots of good and bad effects of Miss Marie Curie's research. Alright, moving on. Number 29. What area of life did Louis Pasteur's work with bacteria help to improve? Well, that's healthcare. He was the one who discovered bacteria. Without that discovery, we wouldn't know what caused things like strep throat or lots of other even nastier diseases out there. So the discovery of bacteria helped with healthcare. Alright, number 40. How did governments respond to the horrible water and sewage conditions in their industrial towns? Well, that was something where they needed to make some changes, so political reforms were needed to address a lot of these issues. Basically meaning that they needed to go and create new laws or change some of the existing laws to make life better for the people in the cities. Alright, number 41. What were some impacts of the Industrial Revolution? Whew, there are a lot of impacts of the Industrial Revolution. If you just look around in your daily life, most of the things that we take for granted, like electricity and mechanized pretty much everything, that's all a reflection of the Industrial Revolution. But some of the things that you'll need to know for the test for sure is that the Industrial Revolution increased people's standard of living, so it meant they lived better. The population increased. There was just more people because there was more food and more resources. There was more urbanization going on, because as I said, people were leaving the farms and moving to the cities to look for work. There were also labor laws for the first time, so governments had to make laws to protect all these new workers. There was an increased need for natural resources, and later on that led to things like imperialism. And of course there was a rise in entrepreneurship, which means like business leadership. Alright, so number 42. When developing the idea of communism, how did Karl Marx feel about private property? He didn't like it. He thought it was the number one thing that made people unequal. So Karl Marx said that we should abolish private property. Pretty straightforward. Alright, so number 43. What is imperialism? Imperialism simply means the political or economic domination of one country by another. Usually it's when a strong country, for example Britain, goes out and conquers a weaker country, for example Kenya in Africa. That's a perfect example of imperialism. Alright, so now, number 44. What were the sepoys in India and the boxers in China fighting against? They were fighting against European imperialism. The sepoys were British Indian soldiers. They were born in India. Most of them are Muslim or Hindu. And they weren't happy with the way that the British didn't respect their religious beliefs. So they rebelled. In China, you remember the boxers were people who were angry and felt like China was being humiliated by the European spheres of influence, which forced China to trade exclusively with different parts of Europe. So they tried to rebel. They killed a lot of Westerners. So both of these were reactions to European imperialism. Alright, so number 45. What are the characteristics and beliefs of Sikhism? They have a lot of different beliefs. The Sikhs, you may remember, are the guys who wear those turbans. Most of the men grow out beards. And they're very peaceful and accepting people. We learned a lot about them in this unit. So you may remember that these people are monotheistic, meaning they believe in only one God. They have a holy book called the Guru Granth Sahib, and that informs most of their rituals and beliefs. They have 5 articles of faith, which all begin with the letter K, and so that's why they're called the 5 Ks. So if you see that. They also believe in equality. Think everybody's equal, so no caste system in their belief system. And they were created as an alternative to Hinduism and Islam for the people who live in the Punjab region of India. Okay, so that's who the Sikhs are. Alright, number 46. What was the thing that Europeans most wanted from their colonies? Building and improving infrastructure in order to obtain it. Well, they wanted raw materials. As we said, during industrialization, the Europeans needed more raw materials to keep their factories going. And so places like Africa and Asia had those raw materials. That was the reason why Europeans spent so much time and money to conquer those places. Alright, number 47. Why did the British want to control the Suez Canal in Egypt? Well, it had a lot to do with their other colony, India. They wanted to control the Suez Canal because it gave them a shortcut to get to India. Here, check out this map. Okay, so now you've seen the map. You can see how the Suez Canal was a shortcut for the British to get to India. Alright, so number 48. What are some positive and negative effects of European imperialism? Well, I think that we all can agree that the majority of the effects were negative, but for the sake of fairness, let's say some of the good things first. One of the good things was that they created better infrastructure for the people of their colonies. Infrastructure means things like roads and sewer systems and communication, like telephones and telegraphs. Not to mention the fact that they had more education for the people. Some of the people got a Western education, and that benefited them. And last of all, they introduced new types of healthcare, like malaria treatments, and that helped the people of the places that they conquered. Of course, like we said, though, there were lots of negatives. I would say the number one negative was that idea of social Darwinism and all the racism that went along with that. You may remember that the Europeans thought they were better than everybody, and it was the white man's burden to conquer all these parts of the earth and civilize them. Of course, there were also very harsh working conditions for most of the native people in these colonies. They didn't get a very fair or equal treatment by these European imperialists. And they also caused a lot of these places to lose pieces of their traditional culture, like their language, the traditional religions, and so forth. So, some positives and also some negatives to European imperialism. Alright, that is it for video number 3. Stay tuned for video number 4, which will talk about the First World War. Good luck on your final exam, guys.